Good morning, everybody. Shalom, and apologies for the slight delay in arrival here. A lot of traffic on the road today as the curfew or the quarantine being lifted in Palm Beach County today. Took a long time to get here, but thank God we made it. And nice to see everybody. I'm just going to post this to social media, and we'll start started. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Let's get comfy. Let's see who's here. Okay. So on YouTube, I see we have Sarah and Elaine that have commented good morning, in addition to the rest of the people that are there. And on Facebook, Daniel Geico, good morning. How are you? Shalom, Robert Berger and Lucy Brown. Great to see you guys. Hannah Siegelstein, Mickey Gottlieb, Yomar and Terry from Atlanta. That's pretty much what I can tell what's going on here. We've got a nice mingling going on. Nice crowd. Marty Knopf and Lauren Feingold from Mirasol joining us. Great stuff. Just before I begin, I just want to share with you that the Gates of Trust that we're doing by request, I'm trying to modify the style of it to be able to do it to cover much more ground in each session. Good morning, Keith. But the terrain changes quite a bit in the part of the Gates of Trust that we're at, so I haven't worked out exactly how I would like to present that. So with that, we have so much else to learn. I'm still going to go in today with the study of the Talmud. That's the Ein Yaakov, the study of Talmud. And if you have the book, we're in the middle of the 5 love languages of the Talmud. We had a great conversation about that last week. And if you don't have the book, then just listen along. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we do that, we're going to do the Hayom today. And with that, let's get started here. 1 second. Today is Monday. Okay. Okay, good morning. We are studying today Erev Lag BaOmer. Tonight is a Jewish holiday, the festival of Lag BaOmer, a very, very spiritual Jewish holiday. It is the birth of the Kabbalah, of Jewish mysticism. Not the birth of Jewish mysticism, but the unveiling of Jewish mysticism. It was in the days of the Romans when the great Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, a student of Rabbi Akiva, was being chased by the Romans, hunted for his life. For religious reasons, they wanted to uproot any fountain of Torah study. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was considered an enemy of the state. What they did was that they hunted him down. He had to go into hiding for 13 years together with his son, Rabbi Eliezer. And there in the cave, they studied Jewish mysticism, eventually writing it up in the book of Kabbalah called the Book of the Zohar. Here you have a pretty nice English translation of the Zohar, and if you can see it clearly, here it is, the Zohar. This is the Pritz edition. Pretty good translation of the Zohar into English. This is the book of the Kabbalah. It's available, the Pritzker edition, by Daniel C. Matt. Last name is M-A-T-T. You can actually read the Zohar in English. M-A-T-T is the name of the translator, Daniel C. Matt. We have this edition in Shul. And it's on this Yantiv of Lag BaOmer that we commemorate the yahrzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He's buried in Miron in the north of Israel, very close to the city of Tzfat, the holy city, the mystical city. Hundreds of thousands of Jews go every year to his burial place on Lag BaOmer, but not this year because of social distancing limitations and restrictions. Even though Israel has lifted much of her quarantine, still you can't you can't behave as you did before. And that is the introduction to today's Hayom Yom, which goes as follows. Hebrew dates today is the 17th of Iyar. So for starters, Tzidkascha is not said. We don't say Tachdon, supplications, in this afternoon prayer. Some recite the Shema in the morning before services to fulfill the obligation of reciting the Shema in its proper time. They should repeat as usual in a non-communal Shema reading the three words Ani Hashem Elokeichem and conclude with the word Emes. When reciting the Shema with the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam or Shimusha Rabbah, the three words are not repeated, but one does conclude with Emet. So let me just explain to you what's going on over here. There's a biblical commandment. We reference it in the Shema itself. And you shall, and these words which I'm commanding you today shall be upon your heart. And you shall learn them, review them to your children, and speak of them when you sit at home, when you go on the way, when you rise up, and when you go to bed, and when you rise up. The biblical commandment is to say these words every night and every morning. It's a biblical mitzvah called the mitzvah of saying the Shema. It's our pledge of allegiance, our declaration of monotheism. We say it every morning and every night by divine command. The question is, when night, we know when night is, when it's dark outside. But when is morning? When does the morning end? So to say the night Shema, you've got to do it once it's dark. If you went to bed at 4 p.m., you haven't fulfilled the mitzvah of saying the Shema at night. That's why it's very important to make sure that you say the Shema after dark every single night. What that means is Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, at least the first paragraph of the Shema. Best is to say all three paragraphs of the Shema. In the morning, however, you're also supposed to say the Shema. For example, you're supposed to say the Shema, but you have to say it before the end of morning. So when is the end of morning? Morning ends, according to the Talmud, check it for you right now. Morning ends at the end of the third hour. Now, each hour of the day is a variable value depending on sunrise and sunset. You take the time between sunrise and sunset, you divide it into 12 parts, and that's how you work out the variable hour. But today, the latest time for Shema would be 9:54 a.m. in Palm Beach Gardens. So if you can daven before 9:54 a.m., you don't need to say the Shema prior. However, if we daven later, you should say the Shema earlier so that you've said the mitzvah of Shema before the end of the morning. When you do so, today's Hayom Yom tells us that you say that with the word emes, which means truth at the end of the Shema, which you always say the word emes at the end of Shema. Even if you're davening with a minyan, without a minyan, you always say it. But when you're davening the Shema on your own, you add the last three words again, you repeat. You say, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I'm God, your God, emes. You repeat the last three words of the Shema as indicated in the prayer book. The only time you do not repeat the last three words of the Shema is if you're davening the Shema in the second or third pair of tefillin, which only very few people actually put on the second or third pair of tefillin. Most people put only one pair of tefillin, of Rashi. But like myself, the Chabadnikim, we put on a second pair of tefillin called Rabbeinu Tam. Very unusual for people to put on a third and a fourth pair of tefillin. That's for another time. Those second and third pairs of tefillin, when you say the Shema with them, then you do not repeat the last three words of the Shema. And it's indicated clearly in the Siddur. At the end of the Shema, there's a little note telling you how to do that. But today's Hayom Yom continues about the Yontiv of tonight, and that's Lag BaOmer. On Lag BaOmer of the year 1844, the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, related this teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. Now, Lag BaOmer is always a very mystical Yontiv. It's a time of great blessings. It's a time when many people were granted blessings of fertility, particularly. And many people waited all year long to be able to daven on Lag BaOmer. Even to this day, there is a custom of infertile parents. This is 2,000 years after Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai passed away. 2,000 years later, people will still go to the tomb of Rabbi Shimon in Miron, and they'll donate a certain amount of money to charity called Chai Rutel. It's called Chai Rutel, whatever that means. I'm not sure what the currency works out to. And they make a pledge that if they have a son within, 1 year, they'll name the son Shimon after Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I know a lot of people that are called Shimon because they were blessed. Their parents were blessed with fertility at the location of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's burial place. He's a tremendous personality, really an extraordinary personality throughout, standing head and shoulders above everybody else throughout Jewish history, a true Kabbalist and the master of the Kabbalah. So, on Lag BaOmer of 1844, that Tzemach Tzedek, the third Chabad Rebbe, related this teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. He quoted the verse in the prophet Malachi from the Tanakh. The verse states, "For you, Israel, shall be a land of desire, says the Lord of hosts." Kitiyu atem eretz chayfetz amar Hashem tzavaos. Just as the great scientists, said the Baal Shem Tov, just as the great scientists will never discover the limits of the enormous natural resources which the Almighty has invested into the land, into the earth, everything came from the earth, neither will anyone find the limits of the great treasures which lie within the Jew, God's land of desire. This is the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that the verse in Malachi compares the Jewish people to a physical earth. Just like, what's the connection? Just like a physical earth has so many resources, we will never ever plumb their depths. From diamonds and fossil fuels to minerals and natural resources, we'll never ever mine all of the incredible treasures that God has placed inside of the earth. So too, we will never be able to mine all the incredible resources that God has placed inside of the Jew. And that's talking about you and me, friends. Talking about you and me. What you have inside of yourself is limitless resources. It's unbelievable and incredible for us to know that we have so much potential lying dormant inside of ourselves. We just have to believe in it and let it out. You just got to try. And God blesses us with extraordinary blessings. And God, your God will bless you in everything that you do. Our effort, what's required of us is to begin the relationship, is to start. You've got to try, you got to make the deed, and God will bless your actions. As human beings, we're capable of extraordinary achievements. I took my family to SeaWorld a little while ago, and we were watching the killer whales. The killer whales doing all these tricks, and I was thinking to myself, who came up with this idea that I wonder who the first person was that saw a killer whale and said, I wonder if we could take that killer whale and teach it to do tricks. I can't imagine what human being, who was that person? What were they smoking when they decided to ask to see if they could make a killer whale, which is, 50 or 100 times bigger than a human being, to do these tricks, this deadly killer. Yet, when you try, we succeed beyond our wildest dreams and expectations. And look back at your own life, and you'll see that that's true. When you actually tried to do something, your success was so much more than you ever dreamed possible. Typically. And that's because we are invested with so much talent and potential and goodness. We just don't even know how good we are. We've just got to try it, and God will bless us. Like the ground, you plant a seed, and suddenly you've got a tree growing or an orchard or a forest growing, and you have so many more apples than you ever knew what to do with, because the earth has just it's lying dormant in the earth. It's just waiting for you to plant the seed to mine the earth, and you'll find mines and extraordinary good things. The Baal Shem Tov concluded, I want to make Israel yield the kind of produce which the Almighty's land of desire is capable of yielding. And that was the mission of the Baal Shem Tov, to be able to urge the Jewish people to reveal everything that they have inside of them, to be able to bring it out. Okay? Now I'm moving over to Talmud, friends. As I welcome all of our guests. I see Hanny's with us. Good morning, Hanny, and Alex from California. up bright and early this morning. Sophie and Diana and Jonathan, nice to see you guys all on Facebook. And on YouTube, I would like to welcome Dean and Adrian and Ron, as well as Helen and Warren from Virginia. Let's do this, friends. Okay, so remember, please post your comments, questions, or critique. It gives me chayas, it gives me energy when I'm able to see your comments and engage with you, as opposed to just talking to a blank screen. So very, very much appreciate your comments and feedback. And if you could share the video, like it on YouTube, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, or share or like the video on Facebook. It helps us with reaching out to ever more people, fulfilling our mission to spread the light of Torah into a dark world. Today we're learning about Talmud. Oh, by the way, before I go further, I want to remind you that tonight we have a very, very special event. It is the Lag BaOmer event on Zoom with the Australian Kabbalist Label Wolf. He's going to be talking about meditation techniques for remaining calm during periods of elevated anxiety, like during a time of Corona and quarantine, to be able to use the power of the Kabbalah to maintain your focus, to stay balanced, keep yourself present, and to be able to find the strength within yourself to find peace and tranquility. It's very closely connected, obviously, to the theme of Lag BaOmer, which is all about the teachings of the Kabbalah, as well as using our latent strength and power to be able to achieve self-mastery. So that's happening tonight at 8 o'clock. The link is at jewishgardens.com/Zoom. That's it, nice and easy. jewishgardens.com/Zoom to join the Farbrengen tonight at 8 o'clock with Label Wolf. We hope that you'll be there on Zoom. Also, Corey's giving a class on Tehillim, as she does Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 11:30. That's Corey's class, same link, jewishgardens.com/Zoom. So please do join us tonight for the Lag BaOmer Farbrengen and invite your friends. We're going to carry on right now with the Talmud as to what it is about the secret of marriage. We learned a piece of Talmud on page 85 of Tractate Brachot in the book Ein Yaakov. It's this book, published by Article Masorah Publications. And we're learning about this piece of Talmud which seems so dry and irrelevant and detached from anything remotely inspiring. Basically, the Talmud said that if you dance, if you don't gladden, if you enjoy the feast of a wedding, but you don't gladden the bride and groom with your dancing, then you are violating the 5 sounds of the wedding, 5 biblical references to sound at a wedding. And if you do gladden the bride and groom, then somehow you'll merit the 5 sounds that are associated with Torah. And we explain that to mean, in light of modern research, the 5 love languages, which modern psychologists have come to discover that as human beings we have 5 languages of love, and until your love language is filled, your love tank is empty. So your spouse might buy you gifts from now until the cows come home, but if that's not your love language, you'll still feel empty. If your love language is verbal affirmations, or if your spouse is giving you a touch, physical touch, which is a love language, that's not going to help you feel loved if your love language is quality time or acts of service, right? So that explains in a very, very beautiful way. It validates a lot of the miscommunication between spouses, where one feels that the other one isn't loving them, when the accused says, "Of course I love you. I bought you gifts. I write you notes," but really, they're not. What they mean to say, and they're not able to express, is that they're not being loved in the way that they want to be loved, which is their own love language, and that really sets into motion. It sends our heads spinning as we start to consider the 5 love languages which the Talmud was introducing to us, and how the dancing at the wedding will help you merit to experience all of the 5 love languages in your own relationship. And we then applied that to the 5 love languages of Torah in our relationship with God as well. As we explained that with God we also have 5 love languages. We also have 5 love languages when it comes to God as well. Those 5 same languages, we said they're words of affirmation, which would be davening. There are quality time, which is Shabbos and Yantiv. They are acts of service, which is the mitzvahs. There's physical touch, which is the physical component of all the things that God commands us to do, where it's not just the thought that counts. On the contrary, it's the action, the deed that matters. And finally, the last one was gifts. Gifts would be tzedakah, charity, right, to God's obligations. So those are the 5 love languages. We spoke about them in the previous Talmud class. You'll find that at youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. I'm carrying on right now with the last piece of Talmud on the 5 love languages. You'll find that at the bottom of page 85 if you have the book. Gladdening the groom and bride. Why is it so important to gladden a groom and bride? Newlywed couples are generally filled with joy and excitement on their own. Why is it necessary to seek ways to add to that joy? Some answer that alongside the joy of getting I think we did this already. I'm pretty sure that we already did this part. Yeah, we did this already. Sorry, folks. I'm going to go further in the Talmud because we already did this piece. I'm going to go on page 87. When we jump around a little bit with the different various things that we study, I apologize for not having realized that we already did this piece. I'm carrying on page 87. It's a new piece of Talmud. Another teaching of Rav Chelbo in the name of Rav Huna. He was the personality that introduced to us the whole concept of love languages. It wasn't Gary Chapman in 1992. It was Rav Chelbo in the name of Rav Huna over 2,000 years ago in the Talmud tractate Brachot. Rabbi Chelbo also said in the name of Rav Huna, if a person has fear of heaven, his words will be listened to when he tells others to improve their ways. As it says in Ecclesiastes, the end of the matter, when all has been heard, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is all of man. The first part of the verse is expounded to mean the result is that all his words are heard if he is someone who fears God and keeps his commandments. So that's how Reb Chelbo learns this teaching of King Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes, the end of the matter. When all has been heard, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is all of man. What this means is the 2 parts of the sentence are connected. When will all of you be heard? If you fear God. A person who does not live himself live up to the Torah standards cannot admonish others, for they will say to him, improve your own behavior before telling us what to do. But they will listen to the admonition of someone who has genuine fear of heaven, because he is loved and respected, and because he is a model of the proper behavior to which he tries to bring others closer. The principle, the basic principle here is that when you believe in what you're saying, then people believe you. Words that come from the heart penetrate to the heart. And words that don't come from the heart, words that come from the mind, or words that come from the neck, if they don't come, if you don't really feel it, then they don't penetrate to the heart of the listener. If you want to know if somebody is speaking to you from their heart, check to see if their words are hitting you in the heart. If they don't hit you in the heart, it's a sign that they're not coming from their heart. They're not sincere. But if the words penetrate to your heart, it's a sign, it's a proof that they actually do come from the heart of the speaker. And what is meant by the last words of the verse, for this is all of man? The Gemara gives us 3 explanations. For this is all of man. So we're trying now to understand the meaning of King Solomon's statement, Ki zeh kol ha'adam, for this is all of man. What is King Solomon referring to over here when he says, Sof davar, after all is said and done, hakol nishma, everything will be heard. Et ha'elakim yira, God, you should fear, vet mitzvotav shemor, and you should observe his commandments. Ki zeh kol adam, for this is all of man. So what on earth was King Solomon talking about when he somehow summed up all of mankind with this sweeping statement? What does he mean? Remember, King Solomon's the wisest of all men. There's got to be something profound over here. So let's see this. It's going to be good. Rabbi Elazar explained there's 3 different explanations. Rabbi Elazar said this is the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai of Lag BaOmer fame, whose father's yahrzeit is tonight. Rabbi Lazar said, the Holy One blessed, he says the entire world was created only for the sake of there being such a person who fears God and keeps his commandments. That's what it means, for this is all of man. The world was created for this person. Everything else in the world was created only because such a person could not come into being without it. Everything else is props. Only the person who has a meaningful and deep relationship with God, and that's the purpose of creation. The world was created for the sake of man, and man was created to praise and acknowledge the Creator. Therefore, it is people who do so that maintain the world. All others, however, do not fulfill the purpose for which they were created. This principle, by the way, is something which we find pretty often in Torah. You'll find that the opening word of Torah is Bereshit, which means in the beginning. It's often explained to mean that it's actually two words. The word Bereshit in the beginning can mean Bet, Reshit. Bet is two, Reshit, beginning. Two things were the purpose of the beginning. The world was created for two things, for Israel and for Torah. For the people of Israel and for the study of Torah. When we, the Jews, study Torah, that's the purpose of creation. When we neglect the Torah, then the world has no purpose. And indeed, we studied earlier in the Talmud months ago that when God wanted to give the Torah to mankind, and mankind rejected the Torah, he went to all the nations of the world and they said no. God actually destroyed the worlds that came before our world. It was only when in our world God found the Jewish people who accepted the Torah, that's when the world continued to exist and God decided not to destroy it. It's an interesting piece of Talmud which tells us that there were worlds before this world. They were destroyed because they refused to accept the Torah. Comes to show you that the purpose of creation only makes sense for God to create the world for a reason, as opposed to God creating the world just so that we can struggle with randomness and chaos and survival of the fittest and war and suffering and loneliness and plagues. It doesn't really make sense. Logically, rationally, it makes sense that God would create the world for a specific purpose, for the creations to have a relationship with him. It's also interesting that you may have heard the term Lamed Vavnik, a Lamed Vavnik, which loosely translates as a 36er. A 36er. What does it mean, a 36er? This means that there must be 36 righteous people in the world at all times. Typically known as the 36 hidden tzaddikim, the 36 righteous men and women. If there are not 36 righteous men and women at any time in the world, then the world would cease to exist. And the world only exists in the merit of the 36 righteous individuals who are always maintaining the world through their righteousness. My kids are always seeking out the 36 hidden righteous people. They'll come over to me and whisper in my ear and they say, I think that person in the shul is a hidden righteous person. And we talk about it. And we always encourage our children to judge every single person favorably. And when somebody's being not so nice, we say that maybe they're a hidden tzaddik, a hidden righteous person. And that they're only being a little mean so that you wouldn't think that they really are righteous. We stoke their sense of curiosity and hopefully stoke their sense of belief in mankind to be able to peer deeper into their souls and not to judge people on face value. So, do we mean the world before the flood? Marty, yes. Not just the world. Yeah, it's not clear, Marty, which worlds were destroyed before this world was created. It seems from the Talmud that we studied that it's actually talking about a world prior to this world entirely. That's the way it's implied in the Talmud, that a world prior to this world entirely is the world is the many worlds that were destroyed before the Jews accepted the Torah. That's number one. And to Sarah's question, does that mean heart? Does that heart-to-heart connection happen online as well as in person? I believe it does. Yep. It all depends. It doesn't depend on the medium of communication. It depends on the origin of the communication. If it's coming from your heart, it's going to hit you in the heart. It doesn't matter if you're standing on a bridge or at a kitchen table or on a balcony. I don't think the media makes any difference. I think that even through a phone call, you can pierce to someone's heart. You can do it through an email. If your words are coming from your heart, they'll break through to their heart. How about the teaching al Shlosha Dvarim Ha'olam Omed? 3 things, not the 2 you just said. So the 3 things in the Mishnah are Ala Torah, which is Torah, Avoda, which is divine service, and Gemilus Chasadim, which is kindness. That's the end of chapter 1 of Ethics of the Fathers, which is, Andy, exactly what I just said. I said for Israel and for Torah, right? That Israel should serve God through Torah. So the 3 things mentioned in the Mishnah upon which the world stands are Torah. Okay, that matches. That's easy. Avoda, which is divine service. Whose divine service? Israel's divine service. That matches, right? And number 3, kindness, acts of kindness, which is what we spoke about, is the love language through which we serve God. So we serve God through Torah, which is, these are love languages. It's about Israel having a relationship with God. Torah, Avoda, Gemilas Chasadim. It's the same thing. Torah and Israel, which basically means to say that Israel has to study Torah and Torah has to have Israel in order for the world to have a purpose. So it's not a conflict at all. Let's see if there's any questions or comments on Facebook. Nice and quiet here. No. Good morning, Rabbi, from Stuart. And Ed Hockman joined us, Graciela and Judy Schuster as well. Nice to see everybody. Very good. Let's keep on going, guys. A little bit more. Andy agrees. Thank you very much. I'm not sure what you mean, Sarah, with your comment. Chapter 5, 10. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, good. So let's keep on going a little further. So the first answer to what King Solomon means when he says, this is all of man. Again, that verse in Ecclesiastes, Kohelet. The end of the matter. The end of the day. It boils down to this, says King Solomon. When all has been heard, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is all of man. What does that mean? Rabbi Eliezer explains it to mean the entire world was created only for the purpose of such a person, a Jew who observes the Torah. Number 2, Rabbi Abba Bar Kana gives another explanation. It means such a person is equal to the entire rest of the world. That is, the rest of the world is also important, but its combined value is no greater than that of a single person who fears God and keeps his commandments. When you observe the mitzvahs, you become the purpose of the universe. So yes, I think he takes it a step further, not to say that everybody else has no purpose other than the one who serves God, but to say that the one who serves God is so much more important that everybody else is equally as important as him. So it's a slightly different nuance. And a third answer from Rabbi Shimon ben Azai says, and some say that it was Rabbi Shimon ben Zomo says, it means the entire rest of the world was created only as a companion for such a person to provide his various needs. This is a middle approach between the other first 2 opinions. Ben Azai takes a middle approach. The rest of the world is not equal to such a person, but neither is it without value. Its value is in that it provides the needs of the God-fearing person. The Maharal of Prague, the creator of the Golem of Prague, he was my grandfather 15 generations ago, explains the nuances of each of these 3 interpretations a little bit differently. The world was created for the sake of only such a person. The first opinion is such a person embodies the purpose for which the world was created. Thus, the rest of humanity was created to primarily to serve people like him. He explains a second opinion. This person is equal to the rest of the entire world. Such a person defines himself differently from the masses of humanity who spend their lives aimlessly in material pursuits. Thus, this person is a world unto himself, distinct from the rest of humanity, and equal to them in value because they're wandering around aimlessly, and he knows exactly where he's going. The world stops to watch a man who knows where he's going. That's what this guy is. The one who serves God through Torah and mitzvahs that King Solomon is talking about. That is the sum total of man. This is all of man because this guy is equal to the entire rest of the world in the sense that they're wandering around aimlessly, but he's worked it out. This guy knows what he wants from this world, what he needs to do in this world. And the third opinion, according to the Maharal, the world was created only as an accompaniment for this person. Such a person, insofar as he achieves the goal of humanity, serves as a living example to others. Not that they serve him, but that he serves them. He serves as a lighthouse to them. The rest of mankind should try to accompany him in life, try to imitate him, to associate with him, and to learn from his ways. So let's go a little deeper into what King Solomon is talking about over here. When King Solomon tells us that the purpose of man is to live a life which has a relationship with God. This is all of man. We're speaking now, we're listening to the wisest of all men. Imagine you had a TED talk from King Solomon. I mean, that would be a very interesting TED talk. Everyone's talking about Bill Gates, about his TED talk where he predicted the coronavirus a few years ago. Very nice. I mean, wish he would have done a little bit more about it, but whatever. King Solomon giving a TED talk, that would be a fascinating conversation. This is the wisest of all men who ever lived. This is the guy who understands the secrets of the universe, who knows the language of the animals, who has an intimate relationship with the demons and the ghosts and whatever else is out there. This is the guy that has plumbed the depths of mankind, of our minds and hearts more than any other human being. That would be interesting. So when he tells us that this is the sum total of man, you definitely got my attention. Let's see what he says. Rambam Maimonides makes the point that there must be a class of people tasked with serving the needs of those who devote themselves to spiritual growth. For if everyone were to concentrate on matters of the spirit and intellect, no one would undertake to do the vital but mundane work of producing food, garments, utensils, and all the building blocks of human society. And if the wise people were forced to take up these manifold activities, they would have no time or energy for the pursuit of wisdom and moral perfection. So Maimonides points out at the outset that you've got to have different kinds of people. You've got to have like a working class that's able to support the people that are engaged in wisdom. Not everyone is aware, continues Maimonides, that their toil is for the sake of those who fear God. When a royal personage builds a palace, he has only his own glory in mind, but his grand project may have an entirely different purpose in God's scheme of things. This purpose might not come to fruition for many years. When a God-fearing person happens to pass through the area and takes shelter from the elements under one of those palace walls, in fulfillment of the verse in Job, a wicked person prepares and a righteous person wears. So here you are, the wicked person thinks that he's building his own palace and he's doing it for his own purpose. But really, in the master plan of things, he's really building a place of shelter where a righteous person will be able to take refuge many years from now. There's a master plan. So we certainly are not clued into that master plan almost ever. This principle is true on a wider scale as well. Even the actions of imperial governments, ostensibly undertaken for the empire's own interests, are intended for Hashem's chosen servants, the Jewish people. This idea is evident from the sages' account of what will happen at the end of days, when the Mashiach will come, when Hashem will hold the Torah scroll in his arm, as it were, and announce, quote, "Whoever occupied themselves with what is written here may come and receive their eternal reward." In response to this call, this is from the Talmud, in response to this call, the Roman Empire will step forward and say, "Master of the universe, we established many marketplaces and bathhouses. We accumulated gold and silver, and we presided over a flourishing economy. All of this we did solely for the sake of the Jewish people." You're right. "So that they may engage in Torah study, to which God will reply, 'Fools, everything you did was strictly intended for yourselves.' After the deflated Romans shrink back, the Persian Empire will step forward and make similar claims, only to be rejected as well for having had the wrong intentions." So everyone's going to want to take pride in saying that they serve the Jewish people, the purpose, the crown jewel of creation, the purpose for which the world was created by God Almighty. But their claims will be rebuffed. This is the words of the Talmud in Tractate Avodah Zarah, when the Talmud says that God will expose them for what they are. You didn't build those bridges to facilitate transportation. You did it in order to fill your coffers with toll booth taxes. And you didn't build those bathhouses for the purpose of hygiene and entertainment. You built for the purpose of hygiene. You did it for your own immorality and entertainment, right? This account observe the brisker of the brisker of is difficult to understand. So he challenges this piece of Talmud. How can these representatives of Rome and Persia stand before God himself and utter such a bold lie? claiming that they carried out their infrastructure projects for no other reason other than the Jews might study Torah. And this, at the end of days, when all of mankind will have already come to recognize the truth about Hashem in the world, when all the illusions of earthly life will have already been exposed and discarded. How could they lie so blatantly before God? What does this Talmud mean? This is the question of the Brisker Rav. When Mashiach will come, it will be the time of truth, Olam HaEmes, the world of truth. The Romans and the Persians will know exactly what their own selfish intentions were in building what they built. They pursued and persecuted the Jews. They didn't do this for the sake of the Jews. Why would they lie so blatantly before God? Look at this beautiful answer. Apparently, the explanation is that they will not be lying at all. Everything they say will be the complete truth. The very world was created for the Jewish people and for the Torah. As Rashi comments in the beginning of the Torah commentary, what I just told you about Bereshit, the word Bereshit is Beit, Reshit, two things were the beginning. The world was created for two purposes only, for God and for the Torah. This is the opening commentary on the entire Torah. Just as creation was for the sake of Torah, so is every event of the life of nations and every development in world history from the time of creation until the end of days, somehow intended so that the Jews may better occupy themselves in making the Torah a living reality. That is the purpose, even if they're not aware of it. It is true, of course, that human beings have free will to act as they choose. But the world is not given to chaos, and nothing ever happens that is not in harmony with Hashem's master plan. In our times, we cannot foresee the ultimate purpose of world events, but in the future, at the end of days, the clarity of hindsight will provide this knowledge to all beings, including the Roman and Persian dignitaries. So these guys, when the Mashiach will come, will look back and see. It will be exposed to them how everything that they did was really part of the master plan, and therefore they will try to claim credit for it. And that's what God will rebuff. At that time, it will be clear to them that their economic and development activities were ultimately intended for the good of the Jewish people, to enhance their lives and facilitate their service of God. This is a very difficult concept to relate to. We've spoken about this recently many times, about how the bad things that happen to us are really hidden good. So the Romans massacred millions of Jews together with our destruction of our temple. They exiled, raped, plundered, pillaged, persecuted, humiliated so many millions and millions of Jews. Same thing for the Persians. Well, the Persians actually were pretty good to us. If you think of King Cyrus, who was the one who gave the order to rebuild our second temple. All things considered, they were pretty good. Not the modern day Persians, the Iranians, but the ancient Persians, relatively speaking, were very good to us. Yet, they did what they did for their own selfish purposes. So this is how you start to realize when Mashiach will come. That's when we'll realize that everything that happened to us, even the things that looked like they were bad, were really hidden good. It was all part of the master plan. It's very difficult to relate to this concept. That is why Hashem, imagine the Nazis will find out when Mashiach comes that what they did was all part of God's master plan. Very, very, very painful and difficult concept for us to relate to. It's almost too difficult for us to process because it's so raw and fresh in our minds. To think that somehow the Holocaust was part of God's master plan. It's just something which we short circuit on. We can't even relate to it. It doesn't make sense. For us to talk about the Romans is not so difficult because it's 2,000 years ago. It didn't affect any of us too closely. But when we think about the Nazis, they were effectively the same thing as the Romans. Same thing, just as bad. If the Nazis killed 6 million Jews, the Romans probably killed many more millions. We just don't feel so bad about it because it's not personal to us. And here the Talmud is saying that everything that God does for a reason. Nothing happens by mistake. Everything happens for a purpose and for a good purpose. We just don't see how it's a good purpose because it's hidden good, right? This is why Hashem retorts by calling them fools, the Persians and the Romans. He did not call them liars because they are telling the truth. This is the explanation of the Brisker Rav. They were foolish, however, for thinking that they deserved the reward when they only had their selfish interests in mind. What they did for selfish reasons. Ultimately, the events were coordinated by God, but their intents were certainly not noble, and therefore they're not deserving of a reward. In the same vein, The Brisker Rav once remarked that the rail system, the train, connecting Berlin to St. Petersburg was built to provide easier transportation for yeshiva students traveling to the great yeshiva in Volozhin, and that the real purpose of the Trans-Siberian Railroad was to open up an escape route to China and Japan for Jews fleeing the Nazis during World War II. I mean, that's quite a sweeping statement, but he said that. He said that the purposes of the train was to save Jews during the Holocaust, to escape to Shanghai, and also to allow the yeshiva students to go to Volozhin more easier. Obviously, that wasn't the reason why the Trans-Siberian Railroad was built. But ultimately, that's what he said, because a Jew who's a believer, who knows that God is the master of the world, and nothing happens by itself, nothing happens outside of God's vision and outside of God's plan, and therefore such a Jew will know that he's never got anything to be afraid of. He's constantly in a state of trust, knowing that every single thing that happens in the world is only coordinated by God. There is no other entity that has any power over me. Nothing else can hurt me, which is why he says that you never have to fear your competitor, because your competitor can't take away business from you. God has decreed how much money you'll make. He's decreed how much money you won't make. That was decided on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There's no one else that can take that away from you, so you have nothing to stress about your competitor. Only God can provide your needs. This is the doctrine of blind trust. It's based upon the doctrine of perpetual creation. Nothing can exist if not that God is continuously creating it at every single moment in time. Not just that God created the world 6,000 years ago, 5,780 years ago, but that God continues to create the world at every single moment in time. This is a founding principle of Jewish philosophy, that God has to create the world at every single moment in time for it to be able to exist. And since God is good, teva ha'tov le'hetiv, the nature of kindness which is to good, God has no evil within himself. There is no such thing as evil. Therefore, God is only good, and God is the only entity in control. There is nothing else in control. Therefore, everything that happens is good. It only looks bad because it's hidden good. It's with this approach that any of this can possibly make sense. Otherwise, you can easily discard this as being out of touch and naive. But when you're infused with the awareness, with the mindset of blind trust, that God is in charge all the time, these things fall into focus. We learned in the Gates of Trust, another principle, that there's different kinds of wealth. We said that there's wealth which is God intends for you to use in yourself. There is wealth which God is giving you to help others. And then there's wealth which God is only entrusting with you in order to pass on to others. We explained that's why the wicked sometimes become prosperous, because they're becoming prosperous so that the widow or the next husband will inherit, so that someone else, a son or someone else, will be the beneficiary of this great wealth. Think about Haman. Haman was extraordinarily wealthy, but he was inherited by Mordechai, right? Think about that. So it looks to us like the wicked is being prosperous, when in reality there's a master plan at play, and the story's not over yet. Hold tight, watch till the end of the movie, and when you go to the end of the movie, that's when everything will fall into place and make sense. The entire world is there for those who fear God and keep his commandments. And that is the mindset of the believing Jew. Sarah has a comment here on YouTube. Chapter 11 of the Igeres HaKodesh of the Baal Tanya deals with this, something good or bad, in such a beautiful way. Can't find it on Chabad.org. Yes, Sarah, I have to tell you that episode 11 of the last section of Tanya is probably my all-time favorite section of Tanya. It deals with why bad things happen to good people. And over there it says that there is no such thing as evil. There is only hidden good and revealed good. And when we are able to focus our minds to see the evil that happens to us for the hidden good that it really is, then that courage and strength and faith, that itself, that courage to see things as hidden good, actually blows the cover of the hidden good, making it revealed good. And you'll find that if you go to jewishgardens.com and you search in the search box, jewishgardens.com, lessons in Tanya, you will find the 5 sections of Tanya. Go to Igeres HaKodesh, and you'll find episode 11. If you search on youtube.com/Jewish Gardens, go to youtube.com/Jewish Gardens, and you'll look for the class called Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People. You'll find an entire class that we gave on this towards the beginning of the quarantine on the idea of why bad things happen to good people. It was part of the Gates of Trust series. So you'll find it actually at jewishgardens.com/trust. That's where you'll find that class. It's jewishgardens.com/trust. But that's the very, very powerful message, friends, which we're learning about today. Good morning, Daniel. The idea that King Solomon is telling us that the purpose of mankind in general is to have a relationship with God. And the question is about yourself, friends. Do you have a relationship with God that is meaningful? Or is it a relationship with God that is mechanical? Think about that. Obviously, if you're in this class, if you took the time in this morning to open up your Facebook and YouTube and to listen to this class, then you probably are seeking out more of a meaningful relationship with God, which is terrific. But King Solomon is telling us that the purpose of man is to be able to reach higher. And I want to just put this in a slightly different context. You know, we have 4 elements in creation. There's the inanimate, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the human kingdom. What these 4 have in common is that all of them are creations. They're all finite, limited beings, part of this world with a beginning and an end. They all have an expiration date. The goal of our lives is to break through our glass ceiling. I think it was Hillary Clinton who said that. But the goal of our lives is to break through our glass ceilings, and we all have glass ceilings. The inanimate is limited to being inanimate. The vegetable stays a vegetable. The animal stays an animal, and the human stays a human. But none of us can rise out of our elements, except in the following manner: when the plant grows through using the mineral resources of the earth, or water, nutrients, the plant grows. Then the inanimate is now incorporated within the vegetable kingdom. And the inanimate has now broken out of its glass ceiling. It's now part of the vegetable kingdom. When the plant, the grass, is eaten by the animal, what happens now is that the vegetable kingdom is broken through its glass ceiling, and now has become incorporated within the animal. Now the grass is part of the ox, part of the cow, part of the goat. It's now part of the animal kingdom. Now when the animal is eaten by the human, same thing happens. The animal is now incorporated into the human kingdom. And that seemingly is all very nice and well, but what about the human kingdom? When the Jew makes a meaningful relationship with God, and it's not only the Jew, even a Gentile who has a meaningful relationship with God. The Gentiles have 7 Noahide laws, universal laws of Noah, which were ratified by every US president since President Ronald Reagan, with no exceptions. When the Gentile develops a meaningful relationship with God, and when the Jew develops a meaningful relationship with God, what now happens is that the Jew takes the animal within him, the animal which has the vegetable within him, and the vegetable which has the inanimate within him, and all of that is now lifted up through our glass ceiling to go from being a creation to being part of the Creator. Remember, a fundamental principle of the Kabbalah is that God and His wisdom are one. Hu v'chokhmato echad. Which means God and His Torah are one. So when you and I study Torah together, this idea itself is God itself captured. Because this is a godly idea that we're learning. And therefore, when we're learning a godly wisdom, we're capturing God Himself. God has limited Himself into bite-sized packaged ideas of God, of wisdom that we can ingest and relate to and understand and comprehend, and thus capturing God Himself. So what we've done now in the past few minutes, past hour of study, is that we've been able to become godly. So I've taken this cup of coffee right now, which is made up of the inanimate. It's also got coffee beans, which is part of the vegetable kingdom. I don't think there's any animal derivatives in here, but I do have What did I have for dinner last night? I don't remember. But whatever I ate for dinner, I think it was some meat. It was some animal product that I ate. Yes, it was some chicken. So when I take the chicken that I ate last night, and it gave me the strength to wake up this morning and talk to you. Here's what I'm doing. I'm taking the chicken of last night, plus the coffee beans of this morning, plus the milk of this morning, which is the animal kingdom, plus the water of the coffee, and all of that is becoming godly. I'm lifting up all of creation out of our glass ceiling, becoming godly. You know, there's a fellow in the community, he's probably watching us right now, who I'm having a fascinating conversation with on this idea. We're having an email conversation. And he feels that we should respect the rights of other living creatures. And I think that's a beautiful approach to life. I think it's very, very beautiful. You shouldn't hurt anyone. He's a very deeply sensitive and kind person, and he doesn't want a human being to hurt an animal. So as I'm learning about his mindset, I disagree respectfully. I certainly understand where this person is coming from, but I'm trying to share with him the wisdom of Torah, the perspective of Torah, that we were placed in this world not just to be, but for the purpose of reinventing ourselves. We were placed in this world in order to become greater than what we started, not just to stay on our default setting and just to vegetate. We were put into this world in order to reinvent ourselves. How do we do that? Through being eaten by that which is above us. The inanimate is eaten by the vegetable is eaten by the animal is eaten by the human, and the human is incorporated within the godliness when we do a mitzvah, when we study Torah. And I hope that makes sense to you. I'm curious to know how you feel about this idea. I would love to hear your comments over here on Facebook and YouTube, friends. Please tell me how you feel about this idea, because where this person is coming from is a very pure place. I think he's coming from a very, very real and pure place. But it's not a purpose-driven place. It's a place which is, from an observation point, that we shouldn't be hurting anybody else. And I think that's great human wisdom. But God reveals to us in the Torah that the purpose of our being here is not just to allow other beings to live in peace, which makes sense from a human perspective, but it's actually in order to incorporate them. We're doing the animal a kindness by killing the animal and eating it with a bracha as kosher food on Shabbos. We're doing the vegetable a kindness when we are using it to nurture, to power our study of Torah. Because the coffee right now is calling out in holiness. I mentioned the story on Friday during the Jews and Food class, which we will be continuing this Wednesday morning at 8:30, by the way, finishing the Jews and Food class. In that class, there was a chassid. His name was, they called him the Rashbatz, Rabbi Shmuel Betzalel. He was having a farbrengen at his house one night, and in brief, they slaughtered the goat to power the farbrengen, to keep on going. And in the morning, his wife asked him, "Where's the goat? I don't see the goat. I'm trying to get my cup of coffee. There's no goat." So he said, the goat right now is saying, Shema Yisrael. The goat is saying God is one, because the goat was eaten by us and is now part of our flesh. And when I wake up in the morning and I say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, it's not just me saying Hashem Echad, it's the goat within me saying Hashem Echad, because the goat gave me the strength to study through the night and to wake up in the morning. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this idea. Let's take a look at your comments, friends. Harry Saperstein. Good morning, Harry. I'm sorry that you're a little late. That is no problem. Always good to see you. Reading that almost every day for many years helped me through many traumas. Sarah's been reading the chapter 11. I'm thrilled to hear that. That is truly powerful. It's mind-blowing stuff. Pray Kavod chapter 4 says, Adrian, is not for us to understand why good people suffer and bad success. Good point. My understanding of that verse, Adrian, in the Mishnah, in Ethics of the Fathers, is not that it's not for us to understand. It's that we're not capable of understanding. That's how I understand it. We are not capable of understanding. What we are capable of understanding is that what we see is not reality. Is what we see is not the end of the game. Everything will be good in the end. If it's not good, it's not the end. That's how I understand that. And we don't live long enough to see the end. But if we did theoretically have a view from the beginning of time to the end of time, then we'd be able to understand how everything is hidden good and how nothing is bad, even the Holocaust. Yes, I know that is a terribly painful and emotional statement to make, but that is what the Torah is telling us, friends. Let's see what else, other comments coming in here. Charlotte, good morning. Boker Tov. Stephanie, been here with you, Rabbi, just walking. Thank you for making me a walking partner. I love it. Sarah, do you drink your coffee with milk? I certainly do. It's actually steamed milk. To make a unpaid ad here for coffee from, what's it called? Nespresso. I got one of those fancy coffee machines. And ever since I got that, friends, I've been studying like there's no tomorrow. Because I study all night. I go to sleep like literally 3 o'clock in the morning. Because I need to sleep. I used to need to sleep 7 hours. Now I sleep about 4 to 5 hours. It's unbelievable. Because I wake up in the morning, I'm exhausted. I have this coffee, this special Nespresso. My eyes are like, it's amazing. Let's see what else. Marty, should we not eliminate pests with an exterminating service? Embrace ants, roaches, and rats. Ouch. Actually, this was a question that my son asked me coming in here this morning. As I was like 7 minutes late to this class this morning, and my son said, Tati, I have a question for you. He's a philosopher. He's like, why would God create a virus? I'm like, can I talk to you about this later? We're starting our class. But King David actually asked this question, Marty. He asked of God, why would God have created pests like mosquitoes and spiders? And God said, everything is my emissary, is my shaliach, and I'll prove it to you. You'll find out one day. And on 2 occasions, without getting into the story right now, on 2 occasions, David's life was saved. Once by a mosquito who stung someone and moved someone's leg while he was sleeping so David wouldn't wake him and be killed. And another time when King David was being hunted down and he hid in a cave and a spider built a web over the entrance very quickly and they didn't look in that cave. So everything serves a purpose, even if that purpose is, sometimes the purpose is served by being incorporated within us. But those spiders and those mosquitoes and those roaches might serve a purpose by doing something, not by being eaten by us, but by serving us in another way. So, for example, the spider that saved King David's life, or the mosquito that saved King David's life, is also being elevated by King David's Torah, not only because they would have been eaten as food and powered his Torah study, but because they saved his life, and therefore for the rest of his life, anytime he studies Torah, it's in the merit of that spider. You see what I'm saying, Marty? So some things, the things that we eat, they power our energy to study Torah. The things that we avoid, in other ways, they connect with us, they power us to be able to serve God. So for example, if you have a cat, or a dog that gives you serenity, maybe makes you calm, or I have a fish tank, which right now is going through a very difficult period. If that fish tank gives me serenity and able to focus and meditate, then the fish are helping me meditate in my service of God. I hope that makes sense to you. Helen, the subject is heavier than I am. Need to digest and think, Warren. This is good, Warren. I've been challenging you to think a lot. This is good stuff, Warren. You look like you've been thinking here more than usual. This is good. I'm very, very proud of you, man. Thank you so much. Yes, says Sarah, that Hashem created the food chain is such a beautiful idea. So you agree with my point to this fellow that we were created to serve a purpose. And that purpose is to elevate all of the universe. And I want to tell you this before I read the rest of the comments, that this is the purpose of the animal sacrifices in the temple. I know they sound barbaric and primitive and archaic, but when you look at the animal sacrifices from a Kabbalistic perspective, you realize that what we're doing here is not just killing animals in the temple for God like some ancient Aztec human sacrifice kind of thing, God forbid. We're talking about lifting up. The word sacrifice is a mistranslation. The word means offering or closeness. We are serving God. We're serving God through using all of creation. That's why the Torah tells us that every offering had to be an animal. Every offering had to have flour in it, flour which is from the vegetable kingdom, or oil. And every offering had to have salt from the inanimate kingdom, flour and oil from the vegetable kingdom, and animal from the human kingdom, plus the human that was bringing the animal offering, which means every time we brought an offering, we were lifting up the entire world to have a relationship with God. When you look at it from that perspective, you see the animal offerings from a whole more meaningful perspective and angle. It's not merely about us just wastefully killing things, but rather about bringing the world to its purpose. And if you think of it this way, I was reading a Jewish comic book with my children last night, and at one scene, a guy buys a fish. And you see the little scene, it says the fish thinks to himself, I hope that I'll be used for his Shabbos table. And it was like an interesting little comment there, because when the fish is eaten on Shabbos, then the fish becomes holy. It fulfills its purpose. A fish in the ocean is not fulfilling any purpose. It's just minding its own business. But when it has the great merit of landing up on a Jew's Shabbos table, and it's used to serve God, then the fish becomes holy. And that's our purpose in this world, to be a light unto the nations. And Or Lagoyim doesn't just mean helping old ladies cross the street or marching with Martin Luther King. It means everything that we touch should become light, should become holy, turning the darkness of this spiritual darkness of this world into spiritual light, illumination, so that everything we touch, a cup of coffee becomes holy, a chicken from last night becomes holy, a piece of clothing that I wear to represent myself when I study Torah with you becomes holy. The cockroach that I'm avoiding or the spider that I'm avoiding is becoming holy because it's protecting me somehow, as I just explained. Sarah, the food chain, right? The food chain idea. So from this perspective, in the food chain, we're not just the top of the food chain in the sense that we eat everything else. We're actually the bottom of the food chain. It's an inverse pyramid. We are the bottom of the food chain where everything else depends on us in order to fulfill their purpose. You got to meditate on that point, friends. Because what's happening here is that everything depends on us in order to fulfill its purpose. I just lost my train of thought. 1 second. What was I thinking? Oh, this is why Hayom Yom tells us that when Mashiach will come, it says, Even mikir tizak uchfitz me'etz ta'anena. The prophet tells us a stone will cry out from the wall, and a splinter will call out from the wall. A stone from a wall and a splinter from a tree will cry out. What will they be crying out? Hayom Yom says, when Mashiach will come, the stone will say, why did you walk on me? Who gave you the right to walk on me? If you were studying Torah and doing a mitzvah, by all means, tread on me, because that way you're lifting me up. But if you're just treading on me for your own self-centered and pleasure-oriented utility, then what gave you the right to tread on me? And that really falls into sharp focus when we look at King Solomon's point today in the Talmud, which is the ultimate purpose of man. Everything falls into focus. Let's take a look at the comments. I see Facebook has a lot of comments as well. I discovered this in zoology lab last year, insect server or whatever. Don't know what that means. I wasn't being serious. You know me. I understand the benefit. Good. No problem, Marty. Creator gave us the pest control in various plants. We just need to know which plants repel which pests. Okay. Very good. Joseph's words to his brothers encapsulated it all. Exactly. Joseph said, Elaine, it was not you who sold me as a slave. It was God who sent me here. Everything is divinely orchestrated, whether we know it or not. It all boils down to that magnificent quote of Joseph. Imagine we could live our lives that anything bad that happens to us, we say, it's not God that sold me here. It's not the person that sold me here maliciously. It's God that sent me here. Wherever I am is exactly where I'm meant to be. Spiders eat some insects. Okay, that's good. And insects also food for the fowl. That's great. So the chicken that we eat last night for dinner probably ate some insect, which now became part of the chicken, which now becomes part of the Torah study. And that's a great perspective on all of that. Beautiful points of that. I'm switching over to Facebook. Mickey, if everything happens because of God's plan, then what is free will? Free will is as follows, Mickey. It means that whether or not you will be righteous or wicked, that's your free will. But what actually happens, that is the will of God. So whether you will be the agent of good or you will be the agent of evil. I know when I use the word evil, I get very confusing to you guys when I talk that there's no such evil. But basically, whether you'll make a good choice or a not good choice, a holy choice or an unholy choice, let's call it that, that's your prerogative. What will actually happen, whether your business will flourish or fail, that's really out of your hands. Which country will be the world's next superpower, that's out of your hands. Which business will be the next super business billion whatever, that's out of our hands. Whether you will be holy or unholy, that is your freedom of choice. Severin Schwartzer, newcomer to our Torah study. In this world on earth, is it not only the way of God, because the weak man can be possessed by a demon? Yes, in the end it will be good, but the way is painful because we all allow the bad things around us. I'm not sure if I agree with you, Severin, and I believe that was and is a God. I found you here on Facebook. Hope one day I understand why. Okay, let me see further. Look, Severin, you're obviously a newcomer here, so I want to tell you this, that there's a lot of background to what we're studying over here. God is the master of the world. I'm going to tell you in brief. Is the almighty master of the world. There's no other entities. There is no demons. A demon is a holy angel of God. So there's no evil kingdom as in the Christian philosophy. I'm not sure where you're coming from, but in the Christian philosophy, there's the kingdom of good and the kingdom of evil. There's no such thing in Judaism. There's only good. There's no evil. There's only good. And anything which looks evil is just a test from God, basically. Lucy Brown. Sorry, I have to leave the class. I have to go to work tonight. I know you are a nurse. See you next class. Lucy is a nurse and a healthcare provider serving to protect us all, and we're very, very proud of you and wish you tremendous success and safety in your endeavors. Back to Facebook. Can a fish feel pain? I realize that you are not a fish, but you would know. Can a fish feel pain? I'm not sure what you're referring to, Warren, but I would think that a fish could feel pain. Why not? It has nerves. Why wouldn't a fish not feel pain? I think a tomato can feel pain. Why not? I mean, maybe not the same way that we feel pain, but maybe in a different kind of way. So there you go. All right, friends. I'm going to call it a day. Fascinating conversation, discussion over here. Tomorrow we carry on with Tanya. Tomorrow morning, it's the Lag BaOmer. Very appropriate to study Tanya on the festival of Lag BaOmer. We're doing chapter 28. Which is a fascinating and another one of my favorite chapters of Tanya. Tonight at 8 o'clock, inviting everybody to join us on Zoom. That's jewishgardens.com/Zoom for the Zoom conference, a Zoom lecture with Kabbalist from Australia, Labor Wolf. Very, very wise man, very popular stuff. Can really change your perspective on reality, bring you serenity and peace and calm through the teachings of Kabbalah. It's going to be a beautiful session tonight, 8 o'clock. Please join us there. And also 11:30 today is Corey's class. You will find that's on Tehillim. You'll find that at jewishgardens.com/Zoom today, 11:30, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. All of our classes you'll find at jewishgardens.com. To find the full schedule of classes and links, that's jewishgardens.com. I'd like to wish everybody a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me today. Shalom, be safe, and see you tonight.